Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another rambling video. Now, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. For those of you not familiar, in rambling videos, pretty simply, I talk about something that I think is important, completely unscripted, and usually in a slightly more informal format. What you're seeing on the screen, for example, might not be relevant to what we're talking, at least for the entire episode. So, you guys know that I really love the old classic Marvel Star Wars comics, among other things from that era, including the old Star Wars newspaper comic run and the other early EU works. You know, back then, at least before Return of the Jedi, I think people were a lot less concerned about what was canon or not, what was officially part of the Star Wars universe, what stories counted, and what you could or couldn't do with the plot on a forward basis. And I think that's fun, and to be honest, I'd like to see that return to a degree in Star Wars, whether it's under the Infinities label or something else. But we'll talk about that another day. Regardless, the old Star Wars Marvel comics gave us a bunch of really fun and wacky stories, which I've covered in prior videos. Everything from Luke and Leia encountering a biomechanical ship in the intergalactic void, to the introduction of Lumia, who would become a major player far later in the expanded universe, and the Nagai-Toph War. However, as Junkman covered in a video which I'll link below, after Return of the Jedi, Marvel was seriously limited in what they could produce. According to him and interviews that he linked, they couldn't do much with the main trilogy characters, they couldn't acknowledge the relationship between Han and Leia, or the sibling nature of Leia and Luke, so that's why the series more or less fizzled out. The main characters couldn't do a whole lot, and eventually the series ended with Star Wars 107. So I know what you might be wondering. How does that play into what you're talking about here? What does a line of Marvel comics that ended in the 80s have to do with the current Star Wars universe, where none of those comics are canon anymore and Legends itself isn't really being continued? Well, we had some very strange news yesterday, or really today when I'm recording this. We are getting issue 108 of the Star Wars Classic Marvel run, and here's the description from the solicitation copy. A long time ago, on a spinner rack far away, Star Wars comics were a lot different than they are now, with wild and intricately plotted storylines. Marvel's historic original run introduced an array of unique heroes and villains to play alongside George Lucas's incredibly popular science fiction characters. In celebration of Marvel's 80th anniversary, this Legends-era sequel to the legendary comic book writer Archie Goodwin's Crimson Forever reunites Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, C-3PO, and R2-D2 with Jackson, Amaza Foxtrain, Dominia Tag, and Valence the Hunter, in a galaxy-threatening, nostalgic roller coaster. Strap yourselves in. So there's a lot to unpack here. It seems like 108, for example, will not be continuing the Nagai-Toph War, which was ended in 107, and will instead be picking up from issue 70, at least the plot threads from issue 70. That's why we see characters like Dominia Tag. In the Tag family in the Marvel comics were really the main antagonists for much of the story. What I'm most interested in, though, and I don't want to talk about plot too much, is the return of Valence the Hunter, and he is a total badass. He's a cyborg, he was originally supposed to hunt down Luke, and in Star Wars 29 actually fights Darth Vader, and is seemingly killed. But if he's returning in Star Wars 108, that means either he's back from the dead, or there's a flashback. But again, I don't think that's important. What really matters is that this is technically a new bit of Star Wars Legends continuity actually being added to the expanded universe. This material will technically be canon, at least in Legends. And yes, it is true that the Marvel comics and the Star Wars dailies, and really lots of other early stuff in the Star Wars EU, was treated as less persuasive canon and was often overwritten. Still, it was a very important part of Star Wars history and even the world building. I mean, besides for characters like Lumia, there were numerous species and planets like Fondor, which were introduced in the old comics. And from a real world perspective, they really helped keep interest in Star Wars alive, whether between movies, after Return of the Jedi, just basically they kept interest up. And I guess this brings me to my main thesis. I think that we need to do whatever we can as consumers to support this new Star Wars 108. We need to buy this comic. Even if you don't normally buy comics, trust me, these old Marvel comics are really cool, and this one looks like it will be in a similar style. But what's more, other than just having, a keepsake and a new comic, I think it's important that we show Disney and that we show Lucasfilm that there is still interest in these old stories, because besides for this, the only little bit of Star Wars EU continuity being added to Legends is with the Old Republic MMO, and eventually that will come to an end. Yes, it is true that Legends told a big story, but there was way more planned. Troy Denning had a trilogy, which he was apparently going to write. There was the Sword of the Jedi trilogy, there was the story about Nomi Sunrider back during the Old Republic days, and there was probably a lot more that we'll never know about. But what's more, even if we don't get new stories or new big plot lines, I think there are many characters in Legends which many of us miss. Whether the new canon is better or worse isn't important. Right now, we don't have a Mara Jade, we don't have a Talon Card, we don't really have a Rogue Squadron. And this is important because apparently there was some sort of correspondence within Lucasfilm discussing the possibility of bringing back Legends, at least in some respects, in the form of video games or comics, and this would be great. So this is why we really have to show basically everyone that this new content is important to us and that we will support it. I mean, yes, this is technically more than anything a celebration of Marvel history, but it's also brand new Legends content. So I hope you guys will join me in being excited and positive about a new Star Wars Marvel issue. The way I think that we best represent ourselves as Star Wars EU fans is not by trying to take down the new canon or by saying Legends is superior, or really by making any reference to the things that other people love in a derogatory way, nor is it in fighting back against the countless people who claim that Legends is garbage or just not good. I think it's just by showing that it meant something to us and that it continues to mean something to us. The expanded universe means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to many of you guys as well. We have to do our best to represent the fandom and again to just show that there is interest in these stories continuing. Sure, we're nowhere near a new Rogue Squadron video game or continuation of Knights of the Old Republic or a new story of Legends Thrawn, but maybe we're not too far away from a new comic or a new reference book, even a small one. Regardless, I can't see this news as anything but a positive step in the right direction. But that's just my opinion. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Will you be picking up Star Wars 108? Are you excited? Do you think it's stupid? Have you ever read the Star Wars Marvel comics? Let me know all of that and more down below. I also think that maybe I'll buy a few copies and do a giveaway, or at least something fun. Also, let me know what you think of that idea. Today's question comes from Attila the Hun. He asks, do you think the clones could have defeated the Jedi in the temple without Anakin's help? And this is in reference to the thing I just covered on the Dark Nest trilogy. I think that yes, the clones could have eventually overwhelmed the Jedi because most warriors were across the galaxy, whether in the Outer Rim sieges or somewhere else. But we do know when the Knights led the charge that they were offering some significant resistance. But there would have just been so many clone troopers on Coruscant that yes, I do think the temple would have been eventually overwhelmed. And we did see that Jedi across the galaxy were killed without Anakin's help. That is just my opinion though. Also let me know what you think on that question down below. Anyway, until next time guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Long live the expanded universe and may the Force be with you.